Hey everybody, Lisa, Quilting in the Valley. We're back with QITV Season 2, Episode 2. And we're going to start piecing on our Geese in the Cabin quilt that we started last episode. So everybody should have got your cutting done for at least your blocks. So here is my cutting for all of my blocks. And I decided to make it easier for myself, I would number everything in the order that it gets put on. So I have my logs all laid out in the order that they get put on. So when I start piecing, I'm going to grab a piece number 1, put it on the center, then piece number 2, put it on the center, then 3, then 4, and the geese then go on. We'll press it, we'll trim it, and then we'll go 5, 6, 7, 8. Add the geese, press it, trim it, and then we'll add 9, 10, 11, 12, geese, geese, press, trim, and then 13, 14, 15, 16, geese, geese, press, trim. It's a lot easier than it sounds. But lay it out in the order that it's going to go. That way you're not going to get confused by the sizes, because if you go by your pattern, it tells you in each fabric, it tells you which rectangle that you're cutting goes in which location. It gets a little bit confusing because the sizes are a little off. So that's why I laid it out like this and then put it in numerical order. I would suggest you do that or not. It's up to you. Do what you want, whatever works. No stress. Okay, so we're going to get started with the piecing of this. Easy peasy, it's just straight piecing. Let's go to the machine. Okay, so I've laid out my first round right here. These two are my geese. They're going to go on last, but I'm going to go middle, first, second, third, fourth. So let's get started. And I have my pressing right behind me. It's a little awkward, but that's okay. Okay, first, then second, and if you'll look at your directions, they are telling you to press outward as you add the pieces. All right, I'm pressing those seams out, and now we're going to come back. So you need your colors are going to be on the bottom and the left. You want your background to be at the top and the right of your block as you stitch it. So bottom and the left, top and the right. If you always remember that and keep it in order, then you're not going to be confused. Okay, now I'm going to press these seams out again. And this is just a quick press toward the logs. And now we're going to learn how to use the ruler. You guys, if you can sew a seam, no matter how accurate it is, this ruler will make this quilt come out perfectly. So let me tell you about the ruler a little bit. So this is a Trim Tool Duo ruler. That means one side of it does one size and the other side does a different size. We're going to use the traditional size or the standard size. So it says standard round 1 right there. This side says skinny. You see where it says skinny there? And then standard over here. We're using standard. In case you were not aware, every Creative Grid ruler comes with the what do you call it? The little flyer thingy that wraps around the ruler when you buy it. So this is wrapped like this. It has full written directions inside it on how to use it. So we're doing the standard 10-inch log cabin, which is this right here, except we're adding geese, but whatever. From a trimming standpoint, we're using the standard log cabin. And if you can't understand those directions, you can scan the QR code on the front of the ruler wrapper and it'll take you to a YouTube tutorial that shows you how the ruler works. But I'm going to show you that. You're already on YouTube and you're already watching a tutorial. So I'm going to show you that. Okay. Standard size, we have round 1. So we just have one log on all sides of our center. You're going to take the standard size ruler, the round one square, and you're going to line it up with your center square on your block. And then you're going to trim off everything on the side. And you remember how I told you that it would be great if you could have one of these rotating mats? That's why. Then I'm going to trim the other two sides the same way. So I'm lining up with my square in the middle, trim off, and trim off. And now you have a perfect sized round one. And now we're going to put our flying geese on. Your flying geese are going to go through your color line. So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to take a ruler and your fabric marking pen that I already told you you needed in episode 1, and you're going to mark a line diagonally point to point on your flying geese fabric. And if you remember, I told you about this pen I'm using. When you first write, nothing happens. It's a liquid ink. And then it slowly but surely shows up white. So I'm going to take this square and I'm going to line it up right in the corner of my pieced unit with my drawn line going like this, right across it. And then I'm going to stitch it, and I'm not going to stitch square on the drawn line. I'm going to stitch like one thread to the right so that my seam allowance doesn't take up my square and I end up having a nice seam allowance. So I'm not off of the line, I'm just to the right side of that line, and that's just to make sure that my square will come out. And I'll show you what I mean. When I pull that out, you'll see how that comes out nice and square, and I didn't lose any ground there. And now I'm going to do the same with the other side. Again, I'm stitching just one thread off of the center of my drawn line. And you can go rotary cut this bottom part off if you want. Make sure that everything is where you want it before you cut. I'm actually going to use scissors, and I'm going to cut that entire piece off underneath. And then I'll do the same on the other side. Again, if you want to rotary cut it, you can. And then I'm going to press these out. And now you'll see I have my very first geese unit put on to my very first round. So now I'm going to grab my logs to make round 2, and we're going to repeat this. It'll be 4 rounds before your block is done. Okay, here we've got our round 2 pieces laid out in order, and just a reminder, we're going to put the bottom, then the top, side, and side. So here I go. Starting with the first one. Remembering to keep my color on the bottom and the left, and my background, the top and the right. I'll do a quick press, and I'm not doing final presses here. I'll do the final press when I get the whole thing put together. So all I'm doing is a quick press at the moment. All right, so you can see how that works. Now I'm going to put my left color on and then my right background on. And you can pin if you want to. A lot of people are pinners. I'm not a big pinner, but you can. Okay, I'll do a quick press and then we're going to go to trim down. Again, that's not my final press, but a quick press. And then I'm going to go trim. So the order we're doing this again is piece your logs, trim, add the geese. Piece the logs, trim, add the geese. And we're going to repeat that 4 times. All right, here we go. We're trimming. This time we are going to do round 2. So you have a black box. We started with the white box for round 1. Now round 2, you're going to take the black box and lay that on top of your center square. So I've got that lined up like that, and now I'm trimming, and again, I'm rotating my mat around, putting round 2 in there, back in that center square. Trimming and trimming. And now we have a perfect round 2. We're going to go add our geese for round 2. So again, I am doing my line from corner to corner on both of my geese squares. Put that away. And I'm going to keep this block oriented in the right direction at all times. So if you remember, color, bottom left, background, top right. If you keep it oriented the same way, you won't make mistakes. So now I am doing the same thing I did before. And that is, I'm lining up my geese square so that it goes right straight across there. And I'm going to stitch to the right side of my drawn line so that I make sure I have plenty of seam allowance to pull over and square up my block. And I'll do it on the other side. So if I were doing this to make this quilt as opposed to demonstrating it, I would have completed all of my block 1 rounds and trimmed all of my block 1 rounds. Then I would have added all of my round 1 geese and then added round 2 and trimmed all at once because it's going to save you a little time going back and forth. So I'm going to press my geese out. Before I trim off that excess fabric, I'm making sure that everything is square. I'm pretty happy with that. That looks pretty good. So now I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to trim away my extra fabric on the back. And then I'm going to add round 3. Keeping my orientation correct. Now I'm going to bring out my round 3 logs. Remember, I'm going to go bottom then top, left then right. So easy peasy. I will add this one on. And again, if you were doing this in groups as opposed to individually, it wouldn't be quite so labor intensive. The going back and forth is a little bit labor intensive. Now I'm putting my top on. Quick press. Keeping my orientation the same. Color bottom left. I'm going to put my left on. So this is 3rd round left log. All right, so now I'm adding the right side background log. And I'll give it a quick press, and then we're going to go trim it round 3 using our log cabin trim tool duo ruler. Telling you guys, if you can sew halfway straight, you can do this and it'll come out perfect with that ruler. Perfect. All right, let's go trim this one. So our first round, we used the white box. It said round 1. Second round, black box says round 2. Third round, white box again says round 3. So we're going to take our white round 3 box. We're going to line it up on our center. Trim. Trim. We'll roll this around. And again, we'll take that round 3 box. Line it up in the center. Trim. Trim. Genius of this ruler, guys. Genius of this ruler. Okay, then we're going to grab 2 more geese, and we're going to go put our round 3 geese on here and here. We're making our round 3 geese. Same process as the last 2 times. Draw the line. So there's a lot of repetitive stuff on this quilt, but it's a really pretty quilt. So it's worth it in the end. Okay, lining up these like I did the others. So I'm putting it right up in the corner there. And again, sewing just to the right side of my drawn line so that I know I have plenty of seam allowance to flip over and cover my space. And as always, before I trim or press or anything, I fold that out and make sure I'm happy with it, and I am. And line up my next geese corner. Sewing just on the right side of that drawn line. And we'll do a quick press, make sure everything's square, and trim those geese off. And then we'll add round 4, which is our last round. And again, you guys, if I were doing this quilt, just sewing on this quilt, I would be doing all of these steps 36 times as opposed to one at a time going back and forth and back and forth. So I would do everything 36 times and be on to the next step. If you like going back and forth, you can keep doing that. But if you're going to make it at home, I would recommend that you get all your stuff lined up and do all 36 steps at once. 36 repeats of each step at once. Okay. And there we go. That's with 3 rounds. And now we're about to add. Again, I start with the bottom with the color, whichever kit you're using, it'll be a different color based on what you're doing. And then I'm going to take my top, line it up, and you can pin if you want. If it makes you happy to pin, then by golly, you should pin. I have a horrible habit of putting pins in my mouth when I stitch. When I pull them out, I don't put them away. I stick them in my mouth, and one of these days I'm going to swallow one, which is part of the reason I tend not to use pins. All right, quick press. Again, pressing my seam allowances out, and now I'm going to put my left dark and my right background on. This is the last round we're going to put on this block. So once this is on, we'll do our last trim and then put our last set of geese on. Okay, I'll do a quick press and then we're off to trim again. Okay, now, so just like the previous ones, we started with a white box, then a black box, then a white box. Now we're on a black box. So it is labeled round 4. You're going to take the black box, round it or line it up on your center block. And then kind of watch out here to make sure your seams are lining up with the lines as well, which I pretty much am. And then you're going to trim 2 sides. And we're going to rotate that around and line that block right straight up again, the same way we just did. And trim. And trim. Et voila. There's our trim block. We're going to go add 2 more geese on this, and then that's it. Your block is done. So let's add our final geese. Draw on our lines. And I believe in your directions it tells you to draw the lines on all 288 of them at once. That way you wouldn't have to do it each time. But hey, it's not how we play here at Quilting in the Valley. Okay, we're going to line that right up here. Right in that corner, which we know, because I just measured, is exactly 10.5 inches, like it's supposed to be. And I'm right to the right of that drawn line. And I'm going to fold that out, make sure I'm good, and I am. And then we'll take the other one, line it up on the other corner. And make sure you've got it square in there, otherwise you're going to throw off all your work that you've already done. Just to the right of that stitch line. And you're going to press it out, make sure it's square. It is. So I'm going to do my press. Make sure I'm square, and I am. And now I am going to trim off that bottom fabric again. On both sides. And now I've got my block completed. So now is when I am going to take a little bit of best press, not a ton, but a little bit of best press. And I am going to spritz this down so that it lays nice and flat. And that'll give me a real nice finish press on this block. Okay. And that, my friends, is your 10.5 inch Geese in the Cabin block. Easy peasy. Beginners can do this. The ruler is magic. All right, we're going to show you how this kind of lays out in the quilt so you'll know how to put yours together. All right, so we have our first block done. So this is our first block of the Geese in the Cabin. And you'll notice in your directions on page 4, it shows you how to lay your 36 blocks. You can make 36 of them. It shows you how to lay your 36 blocks out. You're simply piecing them in rows. So, for example, there you go. And there you go. So it's the exact same block 36 times. It's just the way you lay it out is what makes your design. Now that being said, this is the quilt that we're working on, which is this one behind me. If you want to lay yours out differently, in your pattern on the back page, it gives you all of these alternate layouts, so you can follow any of these alternate layouts and your quilt can be different. I think I'm going to stick with this one because I think that's pretty, but you can do all kinds of different things. Like, look at there. It looks like it's got kind of rings going on. Kind of neat. This looks like big flying geese. That looks like a spider to me. Not sure about that one. But anyway, many different ways you can lay it out. I think I'm going to stick with this one, which is that one, because I just plain like it. But lay it out, sew your rows, measure so that you get your border dimensions correct. Measure through the center of your quilt, top to bottom. Cut your sides, put them on. Cut your top and bottom borders and put them on. That way you'll avoid ruffly borders. So that is all there is to this quilt. This is an easy quilt to do. We have kits in, I think, 15 different colorways. We've got red ones, we've got rose ones, we've got purple ones, we've got teal, green, blue, denim blue, gray. We got all kinds of colors. So you can grab those at quiltinginthevalley.com and just search Geese in the Cabin kit. Additionally, you're going to want to get the 10-inch log cabin trim tool duo. And if you purchase the 10-inch log cabin trim tool duo, we will include this pattern, which normally retails for $6.99, for free. You get that with your ruler. And it's a separate purchase from the kit because some people may have the ruler and some people may not. So anyway, if you get the ruler, you get the pattern for free. And then your kit, I believe they're $129.99, 15 different colorways. Grab them while they're hot and you can make this beautiful quilt. We'll see you next time. QITV Season 2, Episode 3.